Good afternoon from Bali, everyone. It's Hanifa Menon from hearthealthbrainhealth.com, encouraging healthy grieving and mindful actions. Today, I thought I would talk about something that has been running through this mind for quite some time now, and lots of contemplation, reflection time on this. So I wanted to start this video to talk about orphans. And some of you know that I had a great opportunity to actually visit an orphanage in Lombok. And Lombok is another island here in Indonesia. Many islands here in Indonesia. But I had been drawn to this foundation that was doing this work. And for several days, and probably since the time that I was drawn to that place, online first and then in person, is first an incredible gratitude and recognition for the work that is done through orphanages throughout the world, and then an understanding that what we understand about orphans is really important in terms of how we help. And this is not a video to encourage you to look out for foundations that are working with this particular population, but of course if that's close to your heart then it is. But I wanted to help explain orphans, and most people actually feel like they know what orphans are, and it's interesting how language and time and then particular environments and learning changes our definition and our awareness of things. So today I wanted to make sure that you are caught up in some awareness that has come through this mind. Orphans, most people are aware, I guess the definition of orphan is literally a child who has lost one or both parents, and lost, so through death. And I know that UNICEF actually defines an orphan as under 18, so very specific. So imagine the just turned 18 or turning 19 child who has lost both parents to death. And then there is that specific too, right? That an orphan is to death. It's the parents have been lost to death, and yet there's a lot of people that lose parents that are quite alive. And losing parents, one might say, okay, maybe from divorce or separation, now it's a single parent home. Sometimes both parents are not capable of taking care of the needs of a child. So this is the reason that I was actually very drawn to this foundation in Lombok, this ENDRI Foundation. Again, I have no affiliation with this group, but I do see that it's doing some beautiful work. And I remember seeing this, I'll read it to you, that it's a foundation to firstly fight for abandoned children and assist chronically abandoned and disabled. Chronically abandoned and disabled. And interesting, this is again, it's a foundation helping this orphanage direction. And I just love this chronically disabled and abandoned. And you know, there's more and more, whether we think of mental disabilities or physical disabilities, and this place definitely works with both of those too, or helps to support in some ways. And we all do too. And this is where I thought, wow, this definition of orphan really can be expanded. And luckily, of course, you know, what we want to find, we can find over time online. This didn't take long at all, of course, or it doesn't these days. But I can tell you, I did find that today, in the English meaning, this is again, even though it's a child under 18, children without parents are now being defined as also orphans. So there are adult orphans, and I came across a great site that is doing work to help these groups, and with various resources too, so I'll probably put that link just under this video. And it's because there are a lot of adult orphans, and we would think that, oh no, this is a really helpless person, a person who has lost a parent or both. It has to be a baby or a child or a small vulnerable person, and guess what? Every person who loses parents is vulnerable. And guess what? We are all in those situations. And this is again this awareness of where we see there's an aging population, and there's that population that is raising kids and is also caring for aging parents. And then there's also the workload is becoming a little bit more not easy. And I wanted to bring this focus today back to who are we serving, and when are we working with people that are orphans? Now that we know that this can be expanded, this word orphan can be expanded to be beyond the child, though it can be the adult child that grew up as an infant without parents or without a parent. And I would say today there's a lot of kids that are growing up this way. And it's interesting that I say the word today because I don't think it's actually that new. If we look back in history, we can see that there's a lot of families that one parent is staying home to take care of a child and the other parent is working. And then now we've come to a time that most places, both parents need to work to pay the bills, to raise the child or have food and to have a home and all of that. So there's usually a need for both parents working. And then in that time, what's happening with the children? So sometimes here in Indonesia, it's actually quite common to see the children are then with a grandparent or an aunt or an uncle or a family, a neighbor. And this happens in Canada too. I know that in North America, I definitely have seen that some kids have been raised more by aunties and uncles and have not really spent that much time with their genetic parent. And then those become the parents. And sometimes we see this even more commonly, that as children grow up, one child becomes the parent of another child in the same home. And who do we call an orphan in these situations? Because there's no parent officially. Both parents are at work, and then this older sibling becomes the parent. So there's a parent, and yet that child is missing its genetic parents. Does it matter? Not really. When you have love, it wouldn't matter. Yet this is the thing, that sometimes, even with both parents alive and well, there might not be the actual effort in loving a child. And love is the biggest gift we can give. So I wanted to start first of all with our own understanding of orphans and thinking of children. I thought I'd bring this quotation first. It says, "Children without families are the most vulnerable people in the world." Children without families are the most vulnerable people in the world. And we can see that sometimes we can have families for children who are growing up in places that there's a lot of distress. So there can be war-torn areas. There could be places that are just very unsafe in the neighborhood. There could be children growing up with the awareness of death of many people. It might not be their own parents, but many people around them. And children without families. So imagine this, that when anyone is growing up in that sort of environment, yeah, I say children for this quotation, but imagine how vulnerable people feel in these situations. So we know this. When we think about orphans, again, someone who does not have some support system. And I thought that it's so interesting that sometimes we know that both parents are alive, and yet the child is being abused. And sometimes, I know certainly in child services work in North America, sometimes a child is removed, especially if the child is calling, reaching out for help and sharing with any doctors or healthcare professionals. It's legal intervention that then can make a child an orphan. And sometimes this quotation will apply. It says, "Becoming an orphan is healthier than staying a hostage." Becoming an orphan is healthier than staying a hostage. Now remember, sometimes these days, lots of times, there are relationship breakups. And as these breakups happen, for whatever reason, often the children are almost held hostage in terms of, some are literally, and this is all around the world, but literally in terms of just the things that are spoken. Don't tell your mom I said this, don't tell your dad I said this, and you know your dad's like this, you know your mom's like this, because they're not all together. And perhaps they heard all of that while they were all together, and then when the parents go their separate ways and the child is going from one family to another, or one parent to another in different homes, there's a lot of this sort of communication. And then this is, again, this idea that a child being an orphan without that energy is actually more fortunate. And this awareness for us to know that sometimes a child has still gone through that experience of not having this connection, even though both parents are alive and well. And again, what I'd say is the love is missing. Then I want to say that there's a lot of people that are living within a family. There's a lot of not such ease within the home, maybe arguing, maybe health concerns, there could be depression, there could be anxiety, and all of that is going on around them, whether through other siblings, whether it's through parents. And this quotation stood out to me. It says, survivors of family abuse live life with the heart of an orphan. I find that so touching. Survivors of family abuse live life with the heart of an orphan. Now, this might mean that even a child who is treated very well while a parent is being abused by another parent, verbally or physically, is still the heart of an orphan, because that child treated well is hearing all of this information going on. Treated well might be, I'm feeding this child. And then I wanted us to make sure that we understand that every single person has had some of these experiences. So whether they're very close with a friend who has been through that experience, whether they know an orphan by the legal definitions or not, each person is in some experience orphaned, because we know that the parents cannot, any parents, even the most ideal parents, cannot be there 24/7 for a child. And yet, I'd say one of the biggest concerns in those illusions of, well, you've had your parents and I don't have parents, if an orphan says this, it's sometimes a person can have parents and they're not actually present. Sometimes there's so much on the mind of a parent, even the parent that's most caregiving, that there isn't the full presence and love that a child needs for its safety, its encouragement, its enthusiasm, its the belief in the child. That's love. Now, again, then we grow up, we wanted that from our parents, and I'm not saying I'm not an orphan, by the way, but I feel for this group that has grown up, whether they're officially titled an orphan or not, they've grown up in a family, and I've had many friends that are in these situations, and perhaps I've been too. This idea of both parents are present and yet not really present. And especially not understanding that what the child hears is also still affecting the child. Even if the child is not actually abused, maybe abused by the sound in the house, maybe abused by the actions being taken in the house. And most parents are aware of this and yet feeling a little helpless. So then the care provider, even the healthy parent or the helpful parent, is going through a little bit of breaking down, as they can't give 100% to the child when they've got so much on their mind of what they're healing from, or trying to heal from, or sometimes just trying to survive from. But I thought this was a great quotation for understanding how universal this experience of being an orphan, in terms of the feeling of an orphan. It says, in an ideal world, we would have been orphans. We felt like orphans, and we felt deserving of the pity that orphans get. But embarrassingly enough, we had parents. And this is interesting. These are the things that people do not speak about. This is, if someone literally has lost a parent, maybe to death, maybe to some sort of health condition that kept them absent, any reason, perhaps they themselves from work, for something that seems reasonable, they had to go to work, so they were absent. There's reasons for it, and yet can't actually get that sort of compassion from people. And it's kind of good, and don't need a title to say, oh, I was an orphan or I wasn't an orphan, but we do comparisons. And these comparisons then raise families with this, well, at least I had a parent. This friend of mine had no parents growing up, or this friend of mine was an orphan. This parent was abusive, and sometimes the adoptive parents are abusive to the orphan child, or the once orphan child. So in that, really important for us to know that there's so many nuances when we use this term orphan. Now, there's also great groups like this foundation that I went to that are doing work to try to help. Now, we know this is happening all around the world too. What I wanted to bring our attention to today is to end on this awareness that every helper for an orphanage, every educator, every volunteer, every nurse, every doctor, is going through their own experiences of abandonment at some point. So whether a parent lives a long and healthy life and passes away, the care provider has often gone through an experience. Now, of course, this links back to grief recovery, but I want to make sure you know the healthcare industry, world, profession, world experience is happening globally, that the providers of healthcare are broken and they're helping people who are also broken. And then when the broken helps the broken is never full enough to help properly. And this is happening. So whether we say that, oh, I look at so and so works so many hours, but boy, I look at their job title and you know what the salary is that they're getting. This is where we come back to comparison. So we look at the doctor gets this much, and so I don't mind if they work 24/7, really, for my care. I need them, and that's what they studied for, and I want every minute that they can give me. Sometimes nurses are treated this way. Sometimes there's that comparison of the doctor's more important than the nurse. So even if the doctor sees me for 2 minutes, but the nurse sees me for 6 hours, I'm going to have more preference for the doctor. Why? Because they studied for longer and they gave me their time. So this is where we start understanding that we haven't understood our own wounds and our own feelings of self-awareness, where when we're comparing things, I will always look at that person's in a better spot than me. So even as a care provider of an orphan, whether this is an adult orphan or a child, this is really important for us to understand. Am I in a fully caring and connecting place? Because when we look at any healthcare today, many have turned into, this is the task to be done. I've only got so much time. So we're measuring again. I've only got so much time. So I've got to put this much time into making sure everyone is fed here. So this might be a nurse or a volunteer. Or I've got to get these shoes on this client or anything. And yet it becomes more about the task and less about the love that is shared in those times. Because even in 2 minutes, if a proper heartfelt connection is there, they can actually heal people that they're working with. We can. And so we can heal people that we're working with, knowing that there are adult orphans, there are children that are orphans, and it shouldn't take, because they're poor, because they're this old only, they're this age, they're this color, they're in this country, any sorts of reasons. They have this title or they don't have this title. They are going to school or they're not going to school. So we can see that children who are orphans can go into schooling systems, and many times orphans are trying to prove themselves. Am I good enough? I'm just looking to get some approval. I'm looking to be loved. And so I'll look to what can I do to get that. So you see how many people in the world do this, orphan or not, because the feeling is like an orphan. And this idea of no matter what we do, and I'm definitely going to zone in on healthcare providers, these are the positions that we have taken to provide care and service. And if we don't provide care and service to ourselves first, to understand our wounds are being leaked out into the people that we most want to care for. And that's even changed. You can look into yourself if you're noticing this, because with the busyness of life, a lot of times it's not the people that we most care about. We start thinking, well, the people that I most care about is my family, and the reason I'm doing this work is so that I can get money. So even a volunteer may be looking at the schooling that they'll do next, because they saw that the doctor earns a lot more money. So when I get through this volunteer to write it on my resume, to write it on my application for getting into university, then I'll eventually become a doctor. If I don't put my full care into the work I do now, if I don't do it now, I won't do it then. And this is what care providers can bring some attention to for themselves. If you do not put your full heart in now, you won't do it later, because likely you're thinking about your family during your workday. Likely you're going through your own hurt and your own experiences that have not been fully tended to. So I wanted to bring us back to a beautiful quote by Mother Teresa. And it says, and Mother Teresa is well known for having done a lot of work with orphanages. This says, it's not how much we give, but how much love we put into giving. And so important. So even a person who is donating money to an orphanage It's how much love you put into that. And what's the love? It's not just I hope they get through school, I hope they learn English, I hope they can put on their shoes, I hope they survive and thrive. I don't even hope, I know that I wish the best energy to flow to them with this money. Not, oh yeah, well I gave, and so we do. We actually do this, all of us. We'll say, well, I already gave, and did I put heart into it? And maybe some of us can come back into just feeling the heart and not thinking about the money that we're giving, not thinking about the time that we're giving, not thinking about the energy that we're giving, thinking about the love that is flowing from us. And true, authentic love flows from a divine source, also something that many people are losing connection with. Though we speak the words, are we putting it into the service we provide? Today, I would like you to think about orphans at every age and recognize yourself in this picture. If you are understanding this, we're all there or going to be there. And if we can have that compassion and understanding, we can put love into everything we do. I will be talking a little bit more about this in future videos, and I hope that today you will reflect on this for at least a few minutes after this video. I wish you a fabulous day or night ahead, and I hope you remember, transform your mind and transform your life. Have a great day or night, everyone.